Hello, my name is Will Barron, founder of salesman.org. Welcome to this week's Selling Made Simple live chat. I will answer all of your sales, business, live questions the best I can in the next half an hour, 45 minutes or so. I apologize, I'm wearing this scruffy t-shirt. I think you might not be able to see on camera. I have sweaty armpits. It is hot as balls in the UK today. It's pretty freaking hot. What date are we on today? It is the 10th of June. If you're new to these live chats, drop your questions in the box to the right or below this video. I will answer anything to do with sales, anything to do with business, entrepreneurship, small business ownership, personal development, whatever it is. If it's a good faith question, I will do my best to answer it. We'll start off by answering some of the questions that were dropped in the community over at salesman.org in the Selling Made Simple Academy. We'll run through a couple of those, and then we'll go through your live questions as well. Hope you're all doing well today. What day is it? It's Thursday. We're getting close to the weekend. If you're in the UK, you probably look forward to a nice weekend of sunshine and barbecues. I'm looking forward to that as well. So without further ado, have a quick a quick swig of tea, and we'll jump into it. First question from the Selling Made Simple Academy. John asks, what is the most difficult product that you ever had to sell, and how did you sell it? I won't talk about the product names because I don't want to get sued if I start bashing a product. But I was working in medical device sales. I was selling endoscopes. So these are, do I have one with me? I do have one with me. These go inside a patient, straight inside. You've got a camera here. You've got a light that goes in here, a light source. It inflates the abdomen if you're doing kind of gastrosurgery typically, or laparoscopic surgery. It goes inside the patient and you can see what's going on. You can have other tools, other surgical equipment inside the patient, and you can do different procedures. If you have your gallbladder done, it's very likely it's done laparoscopically with one of these suckers. Now, this is just a series of rod glass lenses. I think this one probably broke. Yeah, I can't see anything down there anymore. And the developed, I think a couple of companies do it now, but the company developed a laparoscope and endoscope with a camera on the far end of it. So there was a teeny tiny camera chip right here, as opposed to it being glass rod lenses and a camera on the far end. And the benefit of having the camera on the far end is you have one camera and lots of these scopes. The problem when you've got the camera at the far end is each one of these now costs 20, 30, I think it was like 20 grand a pop, £20,000, $30,000 a pop. And you need multiple of these throughout the day, because you can't get them turned around quick enough because they've got to be decontaminated and sterilized and all that good stuff between patient to patient. And we basically got pushed to sell a number of these products with the camera on the end, and surgeons loved it because the camera was on the end of the scope rather than on the distal end, the far end. The image quality was better, but finance did not enjoy it. Finance were wondering, why the heck am I paying 20 grand for something that essentially does the same job as something that was 3.5, 4 grand? And that was a very difficult sell. And in answer to your question of how did I sell it, it was just getting the surgeons on board, getting them super excited about it and letting them be the champion within the account and letting them get one or two of them in there. So we weren't replacing the whole of the endoscopes. We weren't replacing all of the inventory that they currently had. We get one or two. And what we'd find then is the surgeon would use one in the morning, fast track it. So they had it again for the afternoon. They'd use it on more difficult patients. And then they could go to the finance team, the procurement team, the CFO of the hospital, of the trust, and they could turn around and say, hey, this is better. I've got better patient outcomes, which is one thing, but better patient outcomes means less chance of getting sued. Do you want to get sued for 3 million quid every time something screws up and messes up in surgery? Or do you want to spend 100 grand on 5 or 6 of these endoscopes? So that's how we did it. I think we got a decent sized bonus for each one that we sold as well. So we were financially incentivized to sell that specific product. This was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago now. So it could be that a lot of these endoscopes in the marketplace are all with the camera at the near end as opposed to the camera at the distal end. I have no idea. I've not kept up with the technology in that space. But yeah, that was a friggin' difficult product to sell. And we leveraged the excitement of the end user to go to the people who actually had the money, the procurement people, the finance people, for them to sell on our behalf. Because a salesperson going into an account and saying one thing is not the same as an end user saying it for you. So leverage these champions. Next question, we have Angela, who says or asks, I have a Zoom meeting with my VP of sales next week. What should I know, do, or say to make the best impression with her? It's a standard getting to know you type meeting, but I'm still nervous anyway. Okay, Angela, I would go to, so I'm assuming this is a new VP of sales. Maybe they started a year ago, but you're only meeting them now post-COVID. Let's make that assumption. If that is not true, I can follow up with you in the Selling Made Simple Academy community, and I'll coach you one-on-one in there if we need to. But let's assume that either a new sales VP or it's the first time you've met them. Okay, what they want to know is Angela reliable? Does Angela have a plan? Because if you've got a plan in front of you and you're going to reliably follow a plan and not just throw something one way out one day and throw something one way out the other day, then if you can reliably follow a plan, then they can help you and coach you through that plan to get to success. So I'd be going into that meeting with, I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, I'd have a physical binder, I'd have a 30, 60, 90-day plan all laid out. We've got a video. I'll send it to you directly. I'll dot you an email, Angela. There's a video on YouTube. Just search for 30, 60, 90-day plan or 30, 60, 90-day sales plan, and it'll come up at the top of the search results. One of our videos where I go through what you need to have within a 30, 60, 90-day sales plan, but that's what they are looking for from you. And then the rest of it, just be polite, courteous, respectful, all that good stuff that leadership want to see. But yeah, have a plan and come across as reliable in that meeting. Jimmy asks, you mentioned that you're buying a new MacBook the other day. Yes, I got a MacBook Air. It is in my bag right now. It's a beast. Really happy with it. Genuinely really happy. Best Apple product I've bought in friggin' ages. Can you use the current future reality model to explain your purchase? I can. Let's pull up the whiteboard of quotas and crushing. So if you're unfamiliar, if you're not going through our training products and platform over at salesman.org, we call it the current future reality model, because your buyers have the current reality and they have the bigger, brighter, bolder future reality. And your job as a salesperson is to add enough value to coach them, to guide them, to take them from one place to another, right? Now, if it was literally that simple, then anyone would be able to do it, and sales would be unnecessary. If it was that simple, you could do this by a PDF. You could do this by a series of bullet points. There's always something in the middle, right? And we call this the reality blocker, stopping the buyer going from one side to the other, where they're going to go from the current reality, which might be pretty good, but we're pushing them towards the future reality, where it's going to be incredible. So my current reality, my old MacBook had died. My old other laptop, here on the floor, and I've kind of, I don't know if you can see that on camera. If I go back to this, I'm duct taping this sucker back together. You see it on there because all the innards of it is falling out all over the place. And so every time I go to use it, it just wouldn't turn on, or it turn on, periodically. Now, as regular listeners and consumers of this content will know, I've got a puppy at home, a 6-month puppy called Walter. So all of in the home office, all of the equipment is upstairs, all of the studio space, the home studio space, all of my computers. If I want to do work, I have to go upstairs. And that was costing me productive time during the day, because a lot of the time during the day I want to be downstairs, I want to be hanging out with the dog, I've got to be letting him in and out to go to the bathroom, all that good stuff, because I work from home. So my current reality was here, and it was full of pain because I was losing out on productivity. Now, the future current reality, the future bigger, brighter reality over on this side of the spectrum here is me being able to sit at the kitchen desk and do work whilst the dog licks my toes, because I've got shorts on. It's friggin' hot, as I mentioned at the top of the thing, and I've got I've got my boat shoes on in the house. I'm walking around shoe and sockless. This is taking a weird turn, this live chat, guys. And the future reality is I can sit there and do the work. The thing blocking it is, do I really want to spend £1,000 on a laptop right this second? Dead easy to break through, because my time on one side here is worth so many hundreds or $1,000s an hour. And I'm losing all this time every day because I'm not sitting downstairs productively. I'm instead procrastinating and watching TV instead of doing work because I want to be with the dog. So spending £1,000, offsets this pain of not being able to do the work, this time per hour that I'm losing. And so it was a complete no-brainer. So this is actually a really simple way of breaking through this barrier and breaking through the status quo, because the more I can work, the more I can earn. And within 2 or 3 days of doing a few hours extra here and there by working downstairs, I can pay for the laptop. So hopefully that explains it. And the problem with this analogy, Jimmy, is that this is not a complex sale. This is a business to consumer sale that's very easy to solve for. What you'll find when you do this in reality in the complex B2B selling environment is there's many bricks to this wall that you've got to break through. And there's probably multiple people that you have to break through different walls through as well. If you're selling to a complex account, there's going to be multiple decision makers. There's going to be multiple people within the account that you've got to convince that you can solve this problem for them. So that's where things get more complicated than that example there. Hopefully that helps though. Okay, we have Eli who asks or says, Will, my brother, I hope you're well, mate. I hope you are well, Eli. If cold emailing is my primary concern, is my primary form of lead generation, how many should I be sending a week? Is there any automation I should be doing? Right now, I do it all manually, not to trigger the spam filter. What do you think? So you can effectively use automation and not trigger spam filters. But you've got to automate as if you're doing it in real time as an individual. And a person, I cannot send 100 emails in 3 minutes. Physically cannot be done, right? By automation, you can do it. And so that's what's going to start triggering spam filters. If I'm emailing 10 people and I'm doing it all by hand, they're all going to be slightly different. There are going to be different gaps between each one being sent out. And automation tools like outreach.io can model some of this for you. You don't need to go into the tool and set time and dates and when things are going to go out. It can do a lot of this for you to beat spam filters. So as long as you're not proactively spamming your prospects, as long as you are using automation as a time saver as opposed to a job doer, if that makes sense, I wouldn't worry too much about spam filters. And you're in the training over at salesman.org, Eli, so you understand how to not trigger spam filters or what does trigger spam filters. So in answer to your first part of the question, if cold calling is my primary form of lead generation, how many should I be sending a week? I would go the opposite way around. Right? I would look at my sales target is here. And so you're going to go this way. And if your sales target, say, is 1 million, how many conversations do you need to have? How many appointments do you need to set? How many emails do you need to send to follow up? How many initial, call these outreach. How many initial outreach emails do you need to send? If you do not have this data, other people in your team should have this data. This is a question you can subtly pose to sales leadership of, hey, Barry, the sales manager, how many contact points does it typically take to generate a lead, to generate this, to generate that? And they should have data on some of this. If not, if you can create that data, your sales manager is going to love you, because that is a real bit of valuable intellectual property for the organization, because they can work backwards and refine all this as well. So, Eli, my man, don't think about how many you should be doing to generate enough leads and move this way. Think about your sales target. What do you need to do to achieve that? Because that's all that matters. Number of emails a day is irrelevant. Number of emails a day to hit your quota and surpass your quota is what we care about, right? So think of it that way around. Okay. Nicholas asks, hi, Will, I have 2 questions. One, I listened to your podcast and I got worried when you discussed the future of B2B sales of the future. I got worried when you discussed the future of the B2B sales professionals. Nicholas, you wrote that perfectly. That's just my inability to read there. Are we doomed? Is it a role that will eventually be eliminated due to AI, or will individuals who adapt to the current circumstances survive? Just to be very clear on this, B2B sales is an incredible space to be in. Incredible. You're going to have 2 things. There's going to be a massive gap in the middle. Right now, you have a big bubble, a large amount of B2B and B2C salespeople who are just spamming the market, doing lots of cold calls, It's not very effective. And this is going to get subtly dwindled down by AI, because AI could do more, better, faster, spammy emails than what you can. It can't do great personalized emails. It may never be able to do that. It might be able to do it at some point. But right now, it can do lots of spammy, somewhat personalized emails, somewhat contextual emails better than any person can. So these B2B and B2C sales reps are getting dwindled down right now as we speak. The jobs are slowing down. Over here, mainly B2B, and we're going to say these are experts within their space. We need more of these individuals. These individuals that this is the buying journey right here, right? The buyer used to get involved in the buying journey at this point because they needed to know pricing. Now the pricing is available online, on websites. It's public domain. You don't need to contact a salesperson to get pricing anymore. So now the buyer is engaging at this point when perhaps they are, to be very blunt, they're slightly confused about what they should be doing. They're conflicted. They know that they want this outcome, but they need to speak to a salesperson / consultant / expert in the space so they can help them, guide them, lead them to the right, correct answer, to the best result. Now, this side of the B2B, B2C selling marketplace thrived when they had leverage, when they had the pricing. Now that they don't have anything, they're just spamming the marketplace, generating random appointments that may or may not go on a demo, may or may not give a shit. This is just getting decimated. But experts in the space are becoming even more valuable. You're going to get paid more. You're going to become the center of attention within your industry, your vertical, your space. If I was in medical device sales and I was known as the endoscopic, colorectal, or laparoscopic, lap chole, we'll use that as an example, as I had the endoscope out then. Laparoscopic, colorectal, lap chole expert in North Yorkshire, surgeons would ring you and say, hey, Will, I might not be able to afford the product that you sell. It's the most premium in the space. Can you help me with this? Can you advise me on this? Can you send me on this training? Can you recommend someone for this role? Can you help with this? At that point, you're not a salesperson anymore. Someone's coming to you asking for advice, for feedback, for leadership even. If you're speaking at events, if you're publishing content regularly, that's what you're becoming at that point. And at that point, you can't just be replaced. So when you become, as Seth Godin puts it, remarkable, you become remarkable in your company. As Seth Godin also says, if you become a linchpin within your sales organization where buyers are coming to you personally, you can't be replaced. You're going to get a raise every year. You're going to have massive leverage within your own organization. And this is, when I say B2B sales is going to die a death, it's these people just spamming the marketplace that are going to die a death. And this is going to leave a massive space in the industry at this point in the sales cycle when the buyers probably already got their financing sorted. They've probably already made somewhat of a decision on the product or service that they need. This point in the buying cycle, when a buyer reaches out to you as an expert, is a really nice place to be. The buyer is, they're excited, they're happy to speak with you here. Sales becomes a really nice job. There's no cold calling, there's no spamming people at this point, and you're going to get paid way more and you're going to enjoy the job more. So there you go, Nicholas. When I say the future of B2B sales professionals, could look bleak. Depends on which side of the scale that you're on. Okay, so that's part one of your question, Nicholas. Part two. Building on the previous question from Eli, cold emailing was my primary form of lead generation. What is a good way to follow up if no response has been received after a while? A follow-up call or email? The answer is it depends. You need to experiment. You need to do what we call, we need to do what we call A/B testing. So I'd have a hypothesis here. I would assume that if someone doesn't reply to 17 emails, they're not going to reply to the 18th. So I would test here. I would test A, the phone. I would test B, the 18th email, and I'd see which one works the best. Now, as an individual salesperson, this can get quite complicated fast. And so I'd want to be leaning on my sales management or leaning on the people within the account who are having success. Hopefully someone is winning at your company. Ask them, what are they doing? And just model that. Don't reinvent any of this. Just model what people are having success doing. And just a third question here. When will the update come? Can't wait for the framework stuff, honestly. Nicholas, you will be getting an email probably, because I'm not going to be able to do it tonight, probably being open and as blunt as I can. I'm not going to be able to do it tonight. You're probably going to get an email tomorrow morning that'll explain everyone who's in the Selling Made Simple Academy right now when you're going to get the update and how you can get it a bit earlier. Hopefully you're excited about that. Cool. All right, let's jump into some of these live questions. Ellis Mack says, I would like to know more about this opportunity. What opportunity, sir? You tell me the opportunity you want to know more about, and I will tell you more about it. So from a random LinkedIn user, how do I close sales / get around the quote, we have to wait on the budget to get approved statement? If you're selling B2B and it's a reasonably large size organization, so, larger than a couple hundred employees, larger than, 50 million in revenue, then the budget is there generally. If you can solve a big enough problem, the budget is there. So what someone's communicating with me when they tell me we're waiting on the budget to get approved is maybe they're waiting for the budget to get approved. Don't be a dick. Maybe they're trying really hard behind the scenes to get this deal done. So if we are being optimistic, we can suggest that is perhaps what we should assume. Now, we should always assume but verify, right? So we're going to ask some follow-up questions to make sure that that is the case. And what we need to find out is, when will the budget be approved? We need a specific date. Because if the first time you quiz them on this, they might turn around and say, hey, very literally verbatim, we have to wait on the budget getting approved. And if you just don't follow up, if you don't close the next step of the process, if you just accept that, well, is the budget getting approved tomorrow? In which case, I'm celebrating. We're winning here. Or is the budget getting approved in 2037 when you're an old bastard and there's no way that you're going to get any commission from the deal? So don't just sit on and accept, even if we are being optimistic, that the buyer is doing a ton of work in the background. We're putting an optimistic spin on this when they say we have to wait on the budget to get approved. Just turn around and say, hey, when is it going to get approved? Seems like a tough question to ask, but the buyer will appreciate you asking it because you're going to firm up all the dates and make things more real for them as well. Now, if they're just fobbing you off, if you've done a few demos with them, you spoke to a few people in the account and like, I think we might be getting the budget at some point. Let me follow up with you. And they try and take control of the sale. Well, that's a bit different. There's a few other techniques that we can use there. So follow up if you want me to go down that route in another question in a second. Unfortunately, it doesn't give me your name. It says random LinkedIn user. But yeah, I would just ask for when. Put them on the spot. When are you going to be? What date are we going to have this sorted by? And then the follow-up question from that is probably going to be, okay, what can we do to move that date forward? Who can I help with? Who can I introduce? Can I introduce someone from our finance team if you're dealing with procurement? Can I get my CFO from our organization to speak to your CFO? And if all of this is falling apart, you probably don't have a trigger event, which is key to any large, complex B2B sale. There needs to be a reason, not just to do the deal in the fact that, hey, this is going to add value, this is going to solve a problem. We need to have a trigger event of why do we need to do this thing now? And that would be what I'd be focusing on next. On YouTube, username no asks, highest ROI way to generate leads. I need to know more about the industry, the specifics, but if I'm just going to eyeball this one, 9 times out of 10, the best way to generate leads is not to do anything to do with sales and to do paid advertising. If you can build a paid advertising machine, you put in $1 and you get $2 out, then all you've got to do is find more dollars to throw at it. So I've just done an episode of This Week in Sales with Victor Antonio. It'll be airing on Sunday. If you're not watching this live, record this on Thursday. And we're talking about Outreach.io. I've just raised $200 million. Is it Gong.io? Gong. Whatever it is. Have raised $250 million, I think. And both of them are quoting user acquisition as the reasons for doing these funding rounds. And in answer to your question, no, of highest return on investment way to generate leads, they are both probably found a user acquisition channel where they can use paid advertising. It could be Facebook ads, it could be YouTube ads, whatever it is. It could be sponsoring industry events, it could be sponsoring podcasts and content like I produce. But they probably through years of experimentation, they found at this moment that there's a pathway to generate leads via paid advertising, and that's why they're raising all this money just to throw millions and millions of dollars at it, because eventually these avenues for paid acquisition dry up. Tanishk, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Best book on sales. You're probably new here. There is no good book at sales. They pretty much all suck. I can't really help you on that. The War of Art is a good book on how to beat procrastination. We'll do that as today's example, as a book a tiny book. I usually have, because I gift them out all the time. I've got literally about 50 of them sat out there. I usually have one sat around, but I've not got one on the floor today. But yeah, The War of Art is a great book if you want to take your life to the next level, if you want to understand what it is that holds you back, that makes you procrastinate, that thing that pulls at your ankles when your gut's telling you to do something, and it pulls at your ankles and pulls you back to being average. The War of Art is a great book. I highly recommend that. Don asks, how long have you been working at establishing yourself as an expert in the sales field? So I'll give you the 30-second answer here, the 30-second story. I don't care about being an expert in the field. This has all happened inadvertently. I worked in medical device sales. I literally went home. I sat on my sofa in Headingley, this crappy, fake leather sofa that I had. And I was earning great money, medical device sales, right? Everything was going well. Going out partying, doing loads of cool stuff. And I literally Googled how to get better at selling. Verbatim. And all I could find were articles that made no sense and videos and podcasts, very few podcasts, but videos and a few podcasts with dudes and women that were wearing weird shoulder pads, and all the suits were all massive and clearly from recorded in the 80s and 90s with weird white Apple-esque backgrounds behind them in super low resolution. And that triggered me to want to answer that question myself, how to get better at selling. So that's when I started the Salesman Podcast. And all of our content comes from the perspective of, hey, I'm a salesperson like you. At salesman.org, I hold a quota, right? I manage a team of 9 people. So I'm in the trenches with you guys. I'm interviewing people on the show. I'm creating content on the back of what I learn. I'm creating content on the back of the experiments that we do in the community over at the Selling Made Simple Academy. And everything that I learned from the different shows that we host, whether it be This Week in Sales with Victor Antonio or the Social Selling Show with my man Daniel Disney, I'm taking all of that and dumping it into our training product. So, to answer your question, how long have you been working at establishing yourself as an expert in the sales field? I've become inadvertently an expert by spending a lot of time around experts and taking all that knowledge and condensing it down. It's took about 6, I've been doing this for 6 years now. So whether you consider me an expert or not, the proof is in the pudding. That's the main reason why I do these live chats, other than to help people in real time and hopefully build a bit of community with you guys. It's very difficult to bullshit on a live chat like this. It's extremely difficult. Or, it's not easy to bullshit, but it's obvious that you're bullshitting. Let me put it that way around. And you'll find very, very few quote-unquote experts in the sales space will do any live content like this, where they're getting questions thrown at them and they don't know what the questions are, because they're all absolutely full of it. There's so many quote-unquote sales experts, right? You're on LinkedIn, they've got 20,000 followers, but they've not sold anything in 20 years. They don't have a quota. They're not carrying a bag. They're not managing a team. Every 3 or 4 years, they write some nonsense book that nobody cares about based on some data that's just irrelevant, right? Clearly this is a bugbear for me, right? And so if you're asking me how I fit in that world of sales experts, hopefully I don't fit in there. But it's taken me 6 years to get to the point I am now, where hopefully I'm kind of this vessel where I pull true expertise out of people on the podcast, on the Salesman Podcast primarily, and I give it to you in bite-sized chunks. Hopefully that makes sense. Remco asks, what do you do before visiting a prospect? I'm new in sales. If you're in field sales, so I was in field sales, physically driving laboriously to all of my hospitals and all the accounts around here in Yorkshire and South Yorkshire. Check the freaking traffic. Make sure that you've planned your day. One of the best bits of field sales advice I ever got was when you're going into an account and you book that first meeting, especially here in the UK, we have the NHS, so government-run healthcare, right? And so I wouldn't just be selling to the gynecologists. I'd be wanting to see the urologist. I'd want to be seeing the colorectal surgeons. I'd want to be seeing outpatient colorectal, outpatient gynecology. And so I'd book one meeting and then I'd build the rest of the day trying to book meetings with all these other individuals in the account. Hopefully there's a CFO that covers the whole shebang. I'll be trying to get in with them. There'd be a theatre manager that will cover all of the theatres. The best advice I ever got in field sales was don't just go one place to meet one person. Make sure that you're going into an account with one meeting booked, and at the very least, you know who you should be targeting and see if you can knock on a few doors, say hello, wave a name badge around. At the end of your meeting, ask if they can introduce you to someone else within the account and make the most of your time, because time spent driving is a killer in field sales. So yeah, make sure you're not getting caught out in the traffic, because you're not like a right idiot if you're late to your meetings, and you can't blame traffic. You cannot blame traffic in sales unless your car's exploded or you've been in an accident or something like that. You cannot blame traffic. And then 2, make sure that you're making the most of your time, right? Pretty much common sense. But there you go. That will be useful to you, hopefully, Remco. Okay, I'll do, what time are we on? I'll do a few more of these and we'll wrap up. Lovro asks, I'm in SaaS sales. Would you rather have one person doing lead qualification and the other one prospecting, or both of them doing both things? Lead qualification and prospecting. So you're splitting out research versus outreach. The answer is it depends, right? This is something that you should test. It could be that if you have someone do both of these tasks, that the individual, because they've done the research themselves, they've done the I would call it pre-qualification. You can't really qualify someone before you've spoken to them. That's a two-way process, right? Someone who's done the pre-qualification themselves might have a better, more insightful conversation with the prospect when they get on the phone or when they meet with them in person. That might not be the case. Depending on the complexity of the product, of the market, you might have more efficiencies by splitting up the roles. So it's something that I would want to test. And it comes down to people's personalities as well. You could easily have some massively introverted individuals who just love sitting on the internet all day and rifling through data, rifling through trigger events in the marketplace. They might be terrible salespeople. They might be terrible actually on the phone, but they could be incredible at doing that research at the front end. So in which case, if you've got a few of them, maybe you do want to split the role, but it's something I would want to test. No asks, oh, cool. So ignore the chats on YouTube. I can't remember what your actual question was, but yeah, I will ignore questions I don't want to answer. Yeah, of course I'm going to ignore some of the questions. What else do we have? I'm going to answer a couple more, so I'm just going to search for it. There's a ton of questions. I appreciate the questions, guys and girls. There's more questions than usual. I wonder if there's more people on than usual, which is cool. Okay, Dimitri asks, what is the best way from your experience to reach out to a decision maker in the medical industry? Is it always a doctor? So in medical device sales, when I was selling these endoscopes, these endoscopes from this non-specific brand that I've acquired this endoscope from, you'd have multiple categories of individuals within the account. I think it's the Challenger Customer talks about the different avatars within an account. That's a good book. If you're new to sales and you're selling a complex product, that might be something to worth looking into. But you're going to have the end users. And in my case, the end users were also the champions. And these were the surgeons. These were the people physically putting this inside the patient, and also people on the line if it all went to shit. If someone was going to get sued, it'd be the hospital and the consultant surgeon themselves. So they had skin in the game, essentially. So I had the end users and champion. For me, that was the same individual. Now, It was very, very rare that the surgeon, the person that I would typically go into, I could wave my badge at the companies I worked at and get into most of these operating rooms to speak to a surgeon because they all loved the brand and the company that I worked for. Well, that wasn't the case when I had to go and find the money to get the deal done. So the surgeon would be working on this on their own end, and they'd be doing some of these conversations on my behalf. But I also want to be in control of the sale as best I can. So I'd be trying to speak to theatre managers. Sometimes the theatre managers really cared. Some of the times they didn't care at all. They just wanted to cut costs because that's what they were incentivized to do. Typically, there would be procurement involved. Now, procurement being involved can be good or it can be bad. If you are on the list of brands that they want to deal with and your competitors aren't, great. You're basically guaranteed to win the sale, right? A lot of procurement teams have their own buying process, which unfortunately, whether you like it or not, you've got to fit in. And so fit within. And so you've got to ask the rules of the game, as we teach over in Sales Made Simple Academy. You've got to get in touch with these procurement professionals, the procurement officers. You've got to suss out what they want, the rules that they're playing by, the boundaries that they have. There's one account local here that the procurement officer got a cash bonus if they could deliver a 5% discount on the quote. I spoke to them, understood the rule of the game that they were playing, and just raised the price. I don't know the legality of this. Allegedly, we would raise the price, offer them an instant discount, and the deal would go through seamlessly every single time. So I don't know if there's if that's actually fraud or not. I've literally had this conversation with other people on the podcast before. So once you understand the rules of the game for the individuals that are playing it, all of this becomes a lot easier. So in answer to your question, Dimitri, it wouldn't always be the doctor wouldn't always be the end decision maker, but they'd typically be the one who's going, I want this specific product from Will because I know he's going to support us, train us, and all that good stuff. And then it would go off to procurement, it would go to finance. Perhaps if it's a big enough deal, we'd have the CFO in the room, and they would be the ones that would sign off and make the final decision. So there you go. Oh, I feel slightly out of breath now. So we will wrap up with that. Any questions that if you watch this after the fact, if you leave comments below this video, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Twitch, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's within the Salesman.org community itself, I will do my best to answer them. I'll go back through the comments and answer as many of them that I possibly can. And there we go. I hope you enjoyed this week's live chat, and we'll wrap things up there. Cheers, everyone. Thanks.